Dude, I love your fucking booth.
Thank you.
This is so cool.
I made that Krampus Nutcracker.
Oh my god, yeah, that's awesome.
No,
dude.
he was a drummer boy when he started.
Holy shit, that's so cool.
Thank
I love
you.
Krampus. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, I didn't mean to have a whole devil section in my booth. It just kind of ended up turning into that.
No, it's great. Hi guys, I'm Ava and I'm here with Austin. We are currently at Gold Fang. Do you want to talk about a little bit about your style and yourself and how you got into tattooing and everything?
Yeah, I've been tattooing for 10 and a half years now. I got started tattooing when I was living in Oregon, which is kind of an interesting place to get your license. They do a school system.
Oh, a school system.
They're one of the like few places in the country that even offers that.
So you went to like a tattoo school?
I went to a tattoo school.
Holy shit, man.
Yeah, I will say that there are definite drawbacks to the school system, I think. You know, I was learning from like 4 different people, and that makes it really difficult to like hone in on really anything specific. Yeah. You know, it's a really all over the place instead of having one person that, you know, has a similar style or a style that you really admire, showing you kind of the tips and tricks and ins and outs of it. We learned the bare bones basics and kind of the fundamentals of tattooing, but I still felt really behind after finishing up the school program. Luckily, the school I went to let us stay around and just do as many student tattoos as we wanted to for like up to 6 months after finishing our hours.
So like, what was that like? Did you guys just work on a bunch of fake skin and shit, or like?
Oh no,
what was the curriculum like?
So the curriculum, you'd start off. It was almost like doing like cosmetology school.
Okay.
So you have a certain amount of hours that are like book hours, where you're just learning about dermatology, learning safety and sanitation, bloodborne pathogens. And then after that, the remainder of your hours are practical hours, where people are coming into a tattoo school, getting discount tattoos, knowing that it's a student doing them. And I think the requirement was you only had to do 50 tattoos total.
Oh shit, that's not a lot.
Yeah.
That's really not a lot.
Oh no, it is not. And to be unleashed onto the public with like,
oh my god.
You know, you had like 2 days on second skin.
Holy shit.
And then they started putting you on clients.
Whoa.
Which, I don't know. I mean, I have my issues with the ethics of that, I think.
Yeah. Like, would you, like, if you could go back, would you, like, get a normal apprenticeship?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just think that one-on-one mentorship is so important in this craft. And luckily, you know, my first few shops, I got to work with some really, really awesome artists. I'm still working with some awesome artists that I'm learning from. You know, I hope I never stop learning. I think I would have been a lot more prepared with a traditional apprenticeship than I was out of the school system.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think after like 10 years, I didn't know you've been tattooing that long, actually. Yeah. That's quite a fucking long time.
Yeah, it's a minute.
Do you feel a burnout at all, or like get like irritated or upset? Because I know a lot of people who are in that same time span and they definitely are like, man, I'm kind of over this.
No, I'm hoping my hands and back will hold out.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy. I think it's awesome that I get to go draw pictures on people for a living. It's what I've been doing since I was a little kid. You know, drawing on people.
Yeah.
Like wanting to use a human body as a canvas, and so I hope that never. Or I hope I can do that as long as as my body will let me. You know, there's times where maybe a project is not something that is artistically challenging, but even in that, I feel like, you know, even sitting down and doing basic like script work that is not, I'm not talking about like custom script that, you know, is an art piece. I'm talking about just like recreating a font.
Yeah.
That's still really good practice in the fundamentals and basics. It's always a good refresher as far as like line quality, getting your solid colors packed in, or just even solid fill. So I try to just look at every single appointment as a way to kind of hone my skills and perfect what I'm doing.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like you're going to be like, because I know a lot of artists who have been in the industry for so long, and they're like, I feel like I'm not learning anything anymore. Do you feel like you can always learn something, or? I
think that you can. I think that I understand like it can be challenging when it's a like really like small group. Like we don't have a huge tattoo industry here in Oklahoma. So, you know, there's, I don't know. I think you can always still learn something new. I think a lot of that like can be people's reservations or even sometimes their pride getting in the way of learning something new. Because it can be, it's humbling to go and ask someone, you know, that you're working with or someone that you see a piece from that you really like, to go and ask them like, hey, could you like talk to me a little bit about how you did that, or go and observing while they're working, you know, asking if you can do that. But I found a lot of people are really open to that. Like it's rare that I'm told no, that I can't come and, observe someone work if I go up and I'm like, I really, really love your style. I love this piece. Is there any way I could come and just kind of like sit in on a little bit of a tattoo? I really ran into more open roads with that question than people being opposed to it.
Yeah, like negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find like in the industry, how do you like get around burnout and stuff? Like I know a lot of people will guest spot and like travel and everything, especially like you said, Oklahoma's small. I swear to God, I run into people and they're like, hi, I know you. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like it's very, very tight knit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think traveling is a really great way. I go and I usually do a guest spot at least once or twice a year at my the shop I was at in Oregon the longest.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's a place called Equinox out in Gresham. And it's just a really like open shop. It was somewhere, where we would sit and go over what we'd done or new techniques that we were kind of learning or figuring out and kind of pick each other's brains. So it's always a really refreshing experience to go back and, see Shelly and some of the other people that I worked with out there and kind of see what they're doing new and help kind of just revitalize both my style and my, passion for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I even really like going and working expos. I think it's a lot of fun to like go work a convention in
That's
another
crazy.
town.
I have like most artists complain to me about
I know.
That's wild. I'm excited for it. I'm like, I want to fucking do that. I like going to conventions with tattoo shops. It's cool.
It's fun. It's nonstop. I mean, it's long days, but it's like 3 long days and then that's it.
Yeah.
I don't go out and party a whole lot. I'm too old for that now.
Oh, I'm young and I don't even like to party. I like to watch movies and hang out with my dog.
Yeah,
so.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, sit around, make some art. And,
pretty much.
Yeah,
that's all I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I know some tatters that get really burnt out really quick on expos because they are going out every night of the show. And I'm like, well, yeah, if you're hungover every day, that's not going to be a fun experience.
Yeah. Waking up early and fucking getting back on the grind after you just stayed up until 3 a.m. It's not,
Yeah. But I mean, I've met some really awesome traveling clients, going and working in another state and met some people that were willing to, fly here to get tattooed. Or when I was in Oregon, some people that would fly across the country to get tattooed just because I'd worked a show and we had a rapport.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's a lot of fun. It's also really interesting to kind of go to different parts of the country and see, what the industry and like what the dominant styles are in those different regions. I feel like it's like a lot more like neo-trad and like black work up in the Northwest versus there's a lot more like traditional work here and in the South. And even going on the East Coast, it seems a lot more traditional. So it's just kind of, I don't know, I think interesting to see how the industry has grown up differently in different parts of the country.
What's been your favorite like place you've traveled to tattoo and like you've met certain people? Like you said, you built rapport. Like I like that whenever I go to tattoo conventions, just even talking with other tattoo artists and you can meet clients and it's awesome.
Probably my favorite, there was one that when I was living in Oregon, it was in Oregon, just in a different town, but it was called the Evergreen Tattoo Expo and it was an invitational. And I think because of that, the artists that were selected for it all had kind of an artistic focus. And so there was a lot more of this kind of like just a meeting of minds and people sharing tips and tricks and going around and seeing what other people are doing and how they're doing that. So I always learned a lot at those expos, I felt like. And got to meet some really cool people. And that's actually the first time I met Renee was out at that expo.
Wow, that's awesome.
Years ago.
That's crazy.
So it was a really good one. I met some really good clients at the like Golden State Expo in California and Pasadena.
I want to go to that one so bad. That's like on my bucket list.
They put us in like Black and Gray Alley, which was weird because I do a really illustrative style. And then Shelly, that from my last shop from Equinox, does a really like modern painterly style.
That's interesting.
And so, yeah, it was kind of weird where they put us because it was sort of grouped stylistically. And I just don't think that they really knew where to put us. But I met a couple clients there that, ended up flying out to see me in Oregon and one that's flown out to see me here to get tattooed.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's just really cool to like have people that believe in your art that much and that you have that connection with, that they're willing to do that. Have you had a like moment with a client that has really stuck with you throughout your career? I mean, anytime doing memorial pieces, it can be a really like heavy experience. I think one, though, that wasn't a memorial that stood out to me was doing a rework of a cover-up of a cover-up of a cover-up of this mermaid on this woman's thigh. Shit. And I mean, it was pretty rough looking. Yeah. Like the mermaid had 2 waists. She didn't have ears. Her hairline just came down to the side of her jaw. One of her arms was about 30% longer than the other one. Like it had a lot of flaws, and I was able to turn it into something that she really, really liked. And at the end of it, she was crying and just saying, she's like, her daughter's on the swim team and loves to go swimming, and she hadn't been able to wear a swimsuit in 10 years or hadn't felt, comfortable enough because of this big botched tattoo. And so getting to rework something like that, any of those kind of experiences, I think I don't know, they're a big part of, I think, why I really like working in this industry.
Yeah.
Is being able to give someone that kind of transformation or help them out with something that wasn't insecurity and, turn that into something that they think is beautiful and that they like to see.
Yeah. Dude, that's fucking awesome. 2 waistlines. That's...
Oh, I'll show you some pictures.
I can't even, I'm like trying to imagine that, but I can't.
Oh yeah.
Like,
it was...
It's just, man, that
it was
sucks.
bad.
I mean, at least you turned it into something that she liked.
Yeah. And like had I started fresh, I might have like laid it out a little differently, but being able to turn something into, I don't know, to take something and it was, a bad home tattoo and then a tattoo on top of that was still not really well done, but was really dark, and turn that into something that was, bright and colorful and lively and had some life to it. I don't know, it was a really good experience.
What has it been like? So you said you're from Oregon. What has it been like to transfer to Oklahoma, and how long have you been in Oklahoma tattooing?
So I grew up in Oklahoma. Lived here until I was 27. Moved to Oregon because I had that whole like, if I don't get out of Oklahoma now, I'm never going to get out.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd say if you feel that, I would absolutely recommend. Like, this is the kind of field that you can go anywhere.
Yeah. And
go and have work. So moved out to Oregon for 10 years and ended up just getting kind of homesick. All my friends and family are here, and so decided, a couple years into my last shop that I was going to move home, finished up my lease there, and then moved back. I've been back it'll be 3 years this October.
Damn, so you were in Oregon for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. How was it like coming back and stuff, and how it's just like, I feel like the South has a very different mindset than certain places. Like,
sure.
I grew up in Colorado. I was born here, we lived here, but I don't really remember it. And then we moved to Colorado. So like coming here, it's like, I kind of feel like I went back in time. Yeah. Like with certain mindsets, especially in the industry.
Oh yeah, yeah. There is that. I'll say there's definitely like, as a queer tattooer, there's not very many queer tattooers here. There are a couple other like openly queer tattooers. I see maybe less women in the industry here. That said, there are so many phenomenal women in the industry here.
Yeah.
But there's definitely maybe a little bit of that kind of like old school, like tough macho man mentality that still lingers around it in Oklahoma.
I definitely agree with you.
Yeah. I also see that changing though. The more that I see people, like myself and people like you getting into the industry, you don't have to act like that. There's no one really sitting and forcing anyone to go out and act like they're just the biggest badass on the block, or, trying to start fights with people, things like that. Like,
the old school.
That old school, yeah. Well, and that's, I think a big part of that in Oklahoma, we're the last state to legalize tattooing. It's been legal here not
since
even 20 years. Yeah. And so for a long time, there was an underground industry here that was, run by maybe more illicit elements. Yeah. And in that kind of setting, that's how it works. Not to say that is the ideal way.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been to a lot of shops, and so now I've seen like how different people do it. And I definitely think like a lot of the younger people who are getting into the industry are like queer or female. And I kind of like the way that they do it better. And I think they have better like clientele and like rapport, because instead of that whole like, well, it's my way or the highway macho man type situation, it's more like, well, it's on your body. Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah, it's much more a collaborative process, I think. And I think even with like younger, like cis male artists, like it's still more of a collaborative process. Yeah. There's less of that old school, like you said, my way or the highway mentality. It's a lot more like, this is going on your body forever. You're putting that trust in me. Let's sit down and work together to, create a piece that really speaks to you. I still love, like we do flash days, and I love when I just get to sit down and like do some little bangers that I've drawn out. Yeah. It's a lot of fun, but 90% of the work that I do is custom work. Yeah. And I really enjoy that. Not to cast any aspersions on people that, you know, live and breathe Flash. That's awesome too.
No, I love doing custom and Flash. I'll post Flash sheet and people are like, I want this, this, and that.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's awesome. And we can also do custom. Like, I don't
Yeah.
really, as long as I get to do a tattoo, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's in my style. I think it's cool. You think it's cool. Like,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And that's one of my favorite things about Flash is that it is always something that, you know, it's always in the style that I'm most comfortable in. Versus sometimes, you know, I'll have people come in, and most of the time when someone comes in and wants something in a style that is not my like home style, if somebody came in and wanted something just super traditional, I'm going to refer them to one of the other artists in the shop that really specializes in that. And I always tell the client, I'm like, I can do this, like, you know, from a technical standpoint, but, you know, this person in my shop does a really amazing job, and this is all they do. It's what they're passionate about. And you're always going to get a better piece from someone that is passionate about that style or that subject matter.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's definitely how I felt, because I've had people, you know, come to me just because I've started and they're like, I want this, this, and that. And I'm like, well, that's not really my style. So I can do it, but it might not be as good. Whereas if you let me do something I like, it's going to be way better.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. It's just going to be something that you are, you're innately going to have more fun doing something that is, you know, in your own comfort style. Like I love doing illustrative work. That's kind of what I do. I do like some kind of painterly portraiture also, and I enjoy doing it, but it is maybe less satisfying from a creative process point of view. You know, in portraiture, I'm just trying to do my best to be a human photocopier. And so there is no putting my own spin on it or putting my own style on it. It's all about trying to make it, you know, you don't want to put your own style on somebody's grandmother's face. They probably want their tattoo of their grandmother to look like their grandmother. Versus there are artists out there that do such an amazing job doing realistic portraiture and still stylize it and make it very much their own. Depending on the project, might refer someone, you know, over to somebody else that would do that better.
What type of styles influence you? Like, is there anybody that you're just constantly like, oh my God, like this gives me a spark of creativity?
My favorites are like vintage children's book illustrations, you know, from like the 19th century. Arthur Rackham is an artist that I'm obsessed with that just did all of these little goblins, and it's
I love that. I'm gonna have to check that out. I love little goblins.
Yeah. He's always got little goblins and like fawns and things hiding in all of his pictures. Did a lot of like fairy tale illustrations and mythology illustrations, which folklore and mythology are kind of obsessions for me. And so to have someone doing that in this sort of post Art Nouveau style, but it still has some structure like Art Nouveau, that really speaks to me. Art Nouveau as a movement, Alphonse Mucha, Aubrey Beardsley are some of my absolute favorites. And something that I think definitely reflects in my drawing style. There's always kind of a like very bold versus very fine line contrast with like bold borders and then extremely fine lines inside that I don't know, I just love the way it looks.
How have you developed your style over time? Like, what did you start out drawing and like how has it developed?
I started out wanting to do more kind of neo-traditional.
Oh, interesting.
Because it does have a lot of Art Nouveau influence to it. And over time, I think, you know, when I sit down and draw, most of the time it's pencil or pen and ink. If I'm using color, it's kind of more of a like secondary thing to the line work. Like my line work is always my emphasis. And so I thought that like doing kind of a neo-traditional style would really work out well for me. And just over time and kind of experimenting a little bit, I really love doing like illustrative black work. I still love doing full color pieces, but I like doing full color pieces that have a structured line work to them. And yeah, it's really just been kind of through trial and error and times that I'm doing big black fill, I'll practice different shading techniques and things like that in it because I know ultimately I'm going to just fill it all in with black. And kind of built the way that I like to tattoo that way.
What has been your biggest motivator with, you know, progressing in tattooing, especially doing it for so long?
I think, again, just wanting to be able to be a self-employed artist as long as I can. And again, like before I was tattooing, I was a makeup artist for 8 years. I just love using the human body. Yeah, but creative person, and I love the collaborative nature of having another human being that you're creating artwork on. You know, with makeup, it obviously wasn't wasn't permanent. I feel like I kind of hit a threshold with that, or hit a wall with that, where it wasn't really creatively challenging for me anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of good fundamentals of design. It's contrast and making sure you've got good line quality, and all of those things come in handy, especially tattooing. But I wasn't really getting to go and really like fully flex my creative muscles. I think tattooing, you know, I could make a representative image. I could make a drawing of something that still has to flow on the human body. And so it was a lot more challenging. Like first getting into it, and still challenges me, and that's one of the things I really love about it. You know, I think once it stops being challenging, it starts getting boring.
Did you do any makeup on anybody else? Like, did you do it as for a living?
Oh yeah,
before
yeah, I
tattooing?
did it professionally.
Yeah.
I
Oh, that's awesome.
worked for Mac, slinging makeup in the mall.
Oh damn!
And then got to go do some film and video work with them, and
awesome.
a little bit of runway work.
What would you say your style with makeup was? Did you do any prosthetics, or was it all like glam? Or I love makeup. I'm just awful at it.
No, you're good. Working in the mall, it was mainly glam makeup, just because that's what most people were looking for. I always requested to work on Halloween, because I knew that I would get to do more out there extreme makeup, and because I got to pick what time I'd come in, so I could make sure I was off in time to go get myself ready and go out. I did some prosthetics work. I only really like sculpted and cast a few prosthetics, just for myself. Most of what I was doing was like, you know, like old age makeup, if I was getting to do anything special effectsy, or like light wound work, things that I could build up with like cotton and latex. But you know, the special effects stuff only came around Halloween, really. Yeah. So it's like one time during the year that I got to really have fun with it. The rest of the time was just like, okay, it's the same thing. I understand, you know, contrast and where I need to place a shadow on the face. Versus sitting down and doing a tattoo of a face is, I get to use all of those skills and completely create something brand new that has not existed. Do
you still dabble in makeup at all? Or what do you do outside of tattooing, like artistically?
I paint and draw still. I do drag. So I still do full makeup on myself every now and then, and on friends. And so perform at least like once every other month, sometimes a little bit more. I used to do that a lot more. And again, just the older I get, the harder it is to stay out at a bar until 2 or 3 a.m. and then still be able to make it to work fresh and shiny the next day. But I still really enjoy it. It's another just fun creative outlet for me. I'm working on, again, a project right now where I've been doing full creature suit construction. Pretty much if I can take something and move it around with my hands and make something new, I want to figure out how to do it. I love to sculpt. I'm not great at sculpting, but I still really enjoy it. And, you know, it's something where I don't have to be perfect at it yet. I haven't been sculpting very long. Yeah. You know, there's time to learn. But yeah, just, I don't know. I'd say art in general fascinates me. And I'll just get on little kicks of like, oh, that seems cool. I'm going to learn batik printing today. And start melting wax into fabrics and then dyeing it and see how that turns out. And I don't know. I really love it all. I like that. That's a good answer. That's kind of how I've been feeling. I'm like, I want to do design. I want to do lino cutouts. Like, I want to do just all this shit. Yeah, so. That's like, if you have the creative like spark and that drive and you can picture something in your head, you can learn any of the specific mediums. Yeah. Like, I think and especially with YouTube and technology now, you can just go online and be like, get full ass tutorials. It's not like you just have to do it out of your mind's eye and just trial and error. Yeah. So. Yeah, and you can find out, I mean, like, I don't know, during the quarantine, I decided that I was going to take up whittling. Oh, dude. I never got good at it. How'd that go? I got to where I can carve a, like dowel rod. I can carve it into a smooth, rounded end. Yeah. And that's about as far as my whittling skills have gone. I can strip a piece of wood and I can round edges. Make some Harry Potter wands. Yeah, yeah. I actually have made a few wands. That's awesome. But you know, it's one of those things, I haven't put thousands of hours into it, so I can't expect to be able to sit down and do a perfect wood carving of a human face. That said, I think because I can picture it, if I applied myself and applied, you know, that much time, that I think I could learn it. Yeah. I think anybody, like, I have clients that are like, oh, I just wish that I could draw. If I could draw, I would, you know, want a tattoo. Yeah. Like, how long have you spent trying to draw? And they're like, well, I sit down and, you know, I drew something that didn't look good, so I threw it away. I'm like, if you knew how many drawings I've thrown away versus how many drawings I've kept. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's just a million hours of practice, and that's how you get good at something. That's how I feel. I feel like it's not really like a necessary talent. I think it's definitely just like
the amount of time you put into
Yeah.
it, for sure.
Well, and the talent, I think, comes from having that creative mind. You know, if you've got a creative mind's eye, if you can picture something that you haven't seen before, or you can picture a new way of looking at something that you have seen before. Then again, the rest of that is learning the specific skill to work with the media. And that is a technical thing that anybody can learn by applying themselves. I don't think that you can necessarily learn how to me, I think it's like keeping that kind of imagination that everybody has in childhood. I don't think everybody learned how to keep that active. Like, not everybody exercises their imagination, and that's where the creative kind of flow comes from.
Do you ever get frustrated when you're like working on a new project and you're like, man, fuck, this didn't come out how I wanted it to?
Yes,
like,
all the time.
How do you keep from being frustrated? And like, also, I was talking with Shell that I interviewed at Sacred Soul, and they were saying that they have to like be like, I'm also a person outside of tattooing, and really try to like chill out on being so hard on yourself, because it really goes hand in hand. Once you start hating on your art, it's like, I hate myself, I like want to change, blah blah blah.
Right, especially when so much of your identity is like tied in with your art, and necessarily so, it's your creation. It's not to say it's the same as having children, but you know, it is something that you've created and are very invested in. I think my biggest thing is remembering that I can always, you know, sit down and try it again. There's still plenty of times when I'm laying out tattoo drawings that I will just get so angry at it and, you know, come this close to just tearing up my tracing. And, you know, I have to remind myself that I can sit down and just redraw it a different way. I could redraw it a million different ways. Like, that is a skill that we have.
Yeah.
And so trying to keep in mind, if it doesn't go right the first time, I need to sit and figure out what it is that's not going right about it. You know, if something doesn't look right to me, it's probably because there is a design element that is off or not in harmony with the other design elements. And it's really, for me, just then trying to figure out and pinpoint what that is and come up with, you know, a creative solution to fix it.
Yeah.
And I mean, even that, I still get frustrated, and there's times where I just have to put it down and walk away. And I guess, like Shell said, just remember that I'm a person, and that, like, it's okay to get frustrated with things. And I would much rather get frustrated with like a tattoo drawing than I would with a tattoo.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, like, especially being an apprentice, man, I rip myself apart.
Yeah.
Like, I knew it was going to be hard, but I didn't think it was going to be like, holy shit, I suck and I want to die all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, starting out, do you, like, I know a lot of tattooers who get on their phone and they just like zoom in and look at all of the things that they could have changed.
I absolutely.
Yeah, how do you like get around that? Especially, you've been doing it for a while now, so do you have a way to combat it, make yourself feel better? Or
my thing is looking at that as an opportunity to figure out how I can make my next tattoo better. That's how I personally grow, is self-critique. It has taken a long time to cultivate like a self-inner critic that isn't destructive, where I'm not saying I hate myself because this didn't go right. Instead, looking at it and being like, okay, so this didn't go right because, you know, I can see here that I changed the angle on my hand and that line blew a little bit to one side. And so we've got a thicker line there. So next time, that means that I need to be more conscious of exactly the angle that I'm holding my needle. I can see that a color blend didn't work as smoothly. You know, what could I do to go back and smooth that out? You know, maybe figuring out color combinations to use differently in the future. But just looking at it as an opportunity to like grow and become better. Like, every mistake can be the potential to learn something.
Yeah.
And it can be hard to remember. Like, my first night after finishing, especially big pieces, when I'll just go through and pick them apart, it's not always the most gentle to myself. But I also, you know, I think after doing it long enough, I've realized that doesn't mean it's terrible. If my client didn't say, oh my God, I hate this is terrible. You know, if the client still liked it, ultimately that's what matters. I think a big thing too is not trying to do, I guess trying to research like new techniques and things like that before I'm trying them, so that, you know, even busting out second skin 10 years in and playing around with something before I try it out on skin just to make sure it works. You know, a mistake on second skin, I'm going to be much more gentle with myself about than if I had made that mistake on somebody that's out walking around with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just like trying to learn to give yourself the grace to like understand that you're always going to be learning and perfecting. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing.
If you could do like one type of tattoo style forever and that just be it, would you do that, or would you want to still experiment? Because I know a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm just traditional and this is all
Yeah.
I'm doing. I've only done this for 10 years. That's it.
I really like playing around with different styles. Again, my like comfort zone is really illustrative and structured, but I love playing around with different styles. I love drawing things in different styles. When I was first learning to tattoo and they were like, you need to pick a style for your portfolio, for all your drawings. I said that I was just going to do Medusa as subject matter in 1,000 different styles. And that way Medusa would be what, is like consistent throughout.
Yeah.
Like have her realistic, have her neo-traditional, have her traditional. And so I still in my portfolio today, 10 years later, I've got 6 pages of nothing but Medusa in different
That's super cool.
like different styles of her. Yeah, I'm totally a huge mythology geek.
Do you think that having like 4 people teach you at that time has affected you to like jump from style to style, or you were just going to do that even if you had a mentor that was like one specific style?
I think I probably would have ended up doing that even with a mentor that was just one specific style. I just probably would have gotten a lot better at my like home style before jumping into other styles. It took me a few years to really feel like I'd figured out my style of tattooing. And that's something that I know it takes people that did go through a traditional mentorship or apprenticeship. It still takes time to find out exactly that, but you've at least got a lot more like tools and tricks toward the style that you were trained in and that you learned in, as opposed to having a little bit of like 5 or 6 different people's styles.
Yeah.
It took a while to figure out how to kind of put it all together, I think.
So like if somebody came to you and asked you for advice and they were an apprentice, would you say for them to do tattoo school like you, go and find an apprenticeship? Like what would be your
I would
advice
advise
to
someone to go find an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
I would even say in states where I know Oregon requires tattoo school. I think that there might
They
be.
require it?
Oh, yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's required to get a tattoo license there. You have to go through a state license or a state accredited tattoo school.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah,
What the
it's
hell?
not like an option where you can still do an apprenticeship there, but you have to go through one of the schools anyway.
Whoa.
Like you could pay $12,000 to go through one of these schools. Some of them are more than that now.
Holy shit.
And for a while, there were a lot of schools. The Northwest is saturated with tattoo artists. A lot of the people, I think, that were going into it, though, ended up kind of falling off.
Do you think since it's a craft, like a lot of people I hear, they say it should be passed down from somebody instead of like, I know a lot of people who are against tattoo schools. I've never talked to somebody who went to a tattoo school. That's crazy.
Yeah, I fully understand being opposed to them because I do think it needs to be passed down. I think that, it's a skilled trade, and to learn all of those skills and really thoroughly have a grasp of the ins and outs of it, I think it requires a good mentor. Otherwise, you're going to just be floating for a few years and trying to figure out, how to piece things together. So I would absolutely recommend a traditional apprenticeship over a tattoo school if that is a possibility.
Yeah. So you said that you would, if you could go back in time, do a normal apprenticeship. Would you have stayed in Oklahoma then, or?
I don't know that I would have actually pursued tattooing had I stayed in Oklahoma. Like I started tattooing a couple years into living in Oregon, or like started the tattoo school. I definitely, I had some tattoos before moving, but they were all in pretty traditional environments. The artists that I had were great, but it still was not always a super comfortable place for like a queer dude walking in.
Yeah.
It always felt a little like I need to watch my back. And so I don't know that I would have been able to get an apprenticeship here with anyone. I can't say that 100% for sure, but it definitely was, it was a different climate then than it is now. It wasn't even as open 12 years ago. So I don't know. It's something that I'd always kind of considered. I always loved tattoos, and I would design tattoos for people that, before I started tattooing. That's how I ended up getting into tattooing. Was I had a friend that she would have me design all her tattoos.
That's really cool.
And then she'd go pay to have someone else do it. And she's like, I could just be paying you to do these if you'd learn how to do it. So it's like, yeah, I guess I can go. She's like, well, in Oregon, it's all tattoo schools. And so I went and checked one out, and I found the best one that I could, and made some really good connections there. There's a few of the people that are still tattooing that, I started school with there. are still some of my closest friends, and people that will sit and compare work, or anytime I'm back out in Oregon, that's I guess spot at my old shop, and have a good rapport and good friend group out there.
I know that the climate is more accepting now than it was 10 years ago, but still, how is it like being in a fucking red state of Southern Republicans, like being a queer tattoo artist? I know you guys are a private studio, so that probably really helps. But...
Yeah. I just I haven't encountered any kind of like homophobia or anything like that toward me at my job. I've got a really supportive, group here, artists that we work with. It's a really mixed group of people. So it's kind of people from all over the place and all kinds of different people. It's always interesting being back in a red state. That said, a lot of Oregon is pretty red.
Really?
Like the population centers are super blue, and that's why it swings blue in elections. But most of it is rural farmland.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And so a lot of the counties in Oregon are very red. It's just that the population centers of like Portland and then Springfield and Eugene all go blue. So I don't know. If I'm in the city, I don't really have a second thought about it.
Yeah.
I grew up here. I navigated being queer in the South since I can remember. But there's definitely times where I'd be a little, again, just feel like I need to watch my back or like make sure I've got my knife on me.
Fuck.
Which thankfully I've never been in a situation where I've had to even pull it out. But there's been times where I've been like, oh shit, am I going to have to? So I don't know. It's kind of weird in that like I got called more like homophobic slurs living in Oregon than I did in Oklahoma.
Really? That is so surprising. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure why, other than maybe the people that hold those sentiments are more deeply entrenched because they feel so threatened out there.
That's crazy.
Like I had never seen someone walking around with a swastika armband on until I was living in Oregon.
Oh my God.
So it's definitely not the same as like what I was expecting moving out there. I was expecting it to. I'm like, Portland. It's a like hippie arts city.
Yeah, that's exactly how I think everybody thinks about Portland.
And that is, I mean, the majority of it. That's most of it. But the people that are on the opposite side of that are so on the opposite side of it that they will walk around with Nazi regalia on, or.
Dude, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like Southern hospitality is a thing here, so I feel like a lot of people feel like they shouldn't outwardly say that, but then there is still some people that do say shit that they shouldn't.
Sure. But I do think the Southern hospitality thing, especially in Oklahoma, it's always been my experience that most people here are just kind of like, let me live my life and I'll let you live yours.
Yeah.
And like, it's none of my business. And so as long as like, you're letting people go about their day just fine, then they're probably not going to have any issue with you going about yours.
Have you, you said you did drag, and I know that's like a big thing right now with people hating on drag and shit.
Oh, yeah.
Has that been a problem? Like, not with tattooing, but just drag in general. Like, have you had any encounters?
The biggest things in like the ban that they passed here.
Oh, they seriously banned it.
Well, they passed, it's banning it in places that are not 21 plus. It's a drag and burlesque. Saying that it has to be in like a 21 plus venue.
What's the point of being 18 if you can't like go to a drag show or do anything like that? Yeah.
Right. That said, I mean, like most of the places I perform are bars anyway. So I'm not doing drag story hour. My drag is pretty dark and bloody, and it's
not children friendly.
It's not the kind of thing that I'd be bringing to a family friendly event anyway. Like I'm gonna rip my own heart out on stage and then eat it and throw the rest to somebody.
I don't know. Child me would really love to see that.
Child me would really love to see. That's why I'm doing it now as an adult. I'm just like, oh, I get to do all the things I really wanted to as a kid. I don't know. It hasn't had a huge effect on me, and we'll see. I guess Tennessee's drag ban got struck down by the Supreme Court.
Oh, fuck yeah, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, they said it was a violation of the First Amendment.
Dude, that's awesome.
So we'll see if it stands up here or not.
Yeah.
Like, I doubt it because it is First Amendment rights, but performative free speech. Yeah, I don't know. I remember it going into effect, and then that's kind of been.
Yeah.
It's kind of in one ear or the other.
Not even a big deal at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. How is your family with you tattooing and stuff? I know a lot of people's families are like super against it, or because it definitely, especially back then when you started, was like it was a like biker guy kind
Yeah.
of out of prison tattooing thing.
So my dad was fine with me. He was better with tattoos than piercings,
Oh, that's
which is
interesting.
weird because I'm like, I
Huh.
can take out a piercing and it'll
Yeah.
heal up, you know, for the most
Mhm.
part. But yeah, he was better with tattoos. I think it's because he associated tattoos as being more masculine. And like my grandpa was a World War II Marine vet that had a tattoo of a rooster on his forearm that you could barely
That's so
tell what it was by
cool.
the time I was born. He'd got it in the South Pacific. But I remember just being fascinated that he had a picture on him that didn't go anywhere, like it wouldn't wash off.
Yeah.
My family's really, really supportive of me tattooing. They, stood by me through the whole process. I've tattooed some of my family members.
That's fucking awesome, dude.
They always, and like half my family's Mormon, and they're still supportive of it and ask me if
Damn.
they're like, "Oh, do you have any new tattoos?"
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
"Yeah," but I tattooed this on myself, which is the verse in the Bible that prohibits tattooing.
That's hilarious. That's so funny.
Yeah,
dude.
so that when I went back or came to visit for Christmas one year, and they were
Oh
like,
my
"Do you have any new tattoos?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've got Leviticus 19:28. I'll show make no cuttings in thine flesh for the dead, nor mark upon yourself any tattoo."
That's so. I didn't even know that that was a thing. I
It's
guess
an Old Testament verse.
because we have so many people. I'm like all the walks of life that we have in there. I'm like these are the most bumpkin Christian type of people getting tattoos.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it all depends on how they're viewing, their approach to Christianity,
Mhm.
which is a whole other thing to go into.
Yeah.
But if they wanted to be super, super literal about every single thing in it, in Leviticus, it does prohibit tattooing.
That's crazy. I really didn't know that. Wow.
And I was just sick of doing Bible verse tattoos. I'm like, just tiny, and people always want them in the tiniest script that's not going to hold up.
Mm-hmm.
You try to explain that to them. I'm like, look, I can even show you how script bigger than what you're asking for doesn't hold up. I've got tattoos that are just blurs now. I'm like, if you are okay with that, I can do it at that size.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think it'll be fine. I'm like, all right, yeah, I have no idea what I'm talking about. So I guess let's sit you down and do it.
Would you say your clientele now is like pretty much like what you want to do?
Yeah. That, since coming back, and that's something moving back to Oklahoma, I wasn't really sure because I do a lot of focus on history and mythology and folklore. I do a lot of occult and like witchy tattoos, and then I do a lot of horror. And so I wasn't sure how.
So you do the best tattoos.
I do the best tattoos,
Yeah.
all the fun stuff. But that was one thing moving back to Oklahoma. I'm like, I don't know if there's really going to be a market for like the kind of tattooing that I'm doing. And I've been really pleasantly surprised. Like everything I'm doing is either Sumerian mythology, Greek mythology, doing big gothic bat across the chest right now.
Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
I got to do a pen-up of Brendan Fraser in The Mummy recently.
Dude.
So, I mean, it's just been the best kind of stuff that I've like, yeah, I would love to do that. I'd love to do a tattoo of it. Been doing a lot of snakes lately.
Oh, interesting.
Which is really fun.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of a like meditative tattoo for me now to like tattoo a snake and go through and
all
just
those scales and everything.
Yep. And I'm like, I can just kind of like zone out on it and like really get lost in it. So that's a lot of fun. But yeah, it's being at a custom shop or a private shop helps a lot with that. But that said, I'm just really like pleasantly surprised with the Oklahoma like client base.
I definitely think the city is definitely way more open, and like I meet so many like punk kids and alternative kids who are just like, I want something really cool on me, and it's like it's pretty awesome being a tattooer and being able to like do something that you both want to do. I think it makes just the tattoo better, more creative freedom and everything.
Well, and it makes it a fun experience sitting and hanging out and geeking out with your client about something you're both into. And
talking about like you're talking about horror movies, and your booth is full of horror movie shit. What are your favorite horror movies and everything?
My absolute favorites are Nosferatu, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, kind of that like 1920s silent
those are
German.
Great movies.
I just feel like they had such an impact on the next big ones, like the Universal 1930s horror movies, but they all have this, like they wouldn't have that look if we hadn't had Caligari, if we hadn't had Nosferatu, if we hadn't had that expressionist wave in early cinema that kind of paved the way for everything. I really love the original Suspiria. I still haven't seen the remake.
Yes, don't watch the remake.
Okay.
It's really not worth it. It's
Okay.
kind of boring.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard it's very different than the original.
It's really slow.
Okay.
Like really slow.
Right.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Eyes Without a Face?
I haven't actually.
Oh, you should watch that one.
Okay.
It's an old black and white movie. It's not American or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about a girl and she doesn't have a face and they're trying to do face transplants on her and it goes wrong and
Nice.
it's really it's not silent, but it's good.
Oh yeah,
movie.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Weird.
Definitely right up your alley. Do you like any modern horror movies? Like I feel like I'm super picky now with horror movies. Like I go and see stuff and I'm like, meh.
I am. I mean, like all the worst horror movie I've ever seen was Still a Good Time. I think is a Stephen King quote that I'm like,
oh yeah.
I'll even watch just terrible B schlock movies. Yeah, I've enjoyed like The Witch and Hereditary. The
A24 type of movies.
Yeah. Those two in particular, I'm like, the scary part about them is this breaking down of the family unit.
Yeah.
And I think that using that in a supernatural setting where the supernatural stuff is secondary to this very real collapse of like this family unit. I'm like, that's terrifying.
I'm basic and my favorite is Midsummer. Like when I'm depressed, awesome. I love to watch that movie.
Oh god, yeah.
Like it is definitely, I think it's a great ending because at the end she's happy. Yeah. She's like, oh my god, my abusive boyfriend's dead. Yeah. Like everything's cool now.
You finally see her smile.
Yeah. She's like actually not depressed anymore.
Yeah.
But it's definitely,
she got to be the May Queen.
Yeah. It was a great movie. I just loved the just way that they went through her emotions and even they added scenes in the extended that were like her fighting with him and like it really like built up their relationship more and stuff like that. Yeah.
Nice. I have not seen the extended version. I'll have to check it out.
They add some and then they add one and it's like a boy and they put rocks in his shoes and they're going to throw him into the water and she freaks out and then they won't throw the boy in the water because they know she's going to be the May Queen and they're like, okay, we won't do it. And it's like, they add just certain scenes that weren't in the original movie and I feel like it helps to develop the characters more.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely need to watch it. I just loved how bright it was too. Like
I know, a daytime horror movie.
Yeah,
that's like really
so
what
rare.
sold it for me. Yeah. And it was gruesome. Like the deaths that they had. I mean, I love horror movies that it's just like the worst type of like deaths.
Oh, have you seen Terrifier?
Yes, I love Terrifier.
Terrifier 2, I think, has a better story, just because there is a story.
No, they definitely plotted that one out. But I like the
first one too. It's me and a friend are going as Art and the Pale Girl for Halloween.
That's super awesome. Yeah, at the end, whenever he eats her fucking face and shit, and I was like, oh my god. Or when he cuts the girl in half with the chainsaw.
Oh god.
Yeah, that movie's so good.
Yeah.
Have you watched? What the fuck is that movie called? Oh shit! It's about, I gotta tell you the plot. I can't remember what the movie is. They made a bunch of them though. It was like an original like 2000s horror movie, and they made a new one, and the new one is really good. But basically, a bunch of kids go into the woods and they go off the trail, and then there's a bunch of like savages in the woods, and there's a bunch of traps, and they start getting murdered one by one, and they think that these people are like out to get them, and so then they end up killing those people, and then they go on trial, and it was like these people just had traps set up because they didn't want. Like it wasn't, they weren't trying to kill them. Yeah.
Oh man.
Man, it's really good. It's like they just like go off the path, but there's a wrong turn. That's what it's called. Wrong Turn.
Yeah.
The newest one that they made, I really liked. It's just, I mean, the deaths in it. There's like a part where this log comes down and it rolls down and then it hits this guy's head against a tree and it just like it's great. It's a really good movie.
No, I love any kind of just like extreme gore special effects.
I don't even care if it's not realistic because I think it's like really funny.
That's what I'm like. I almost prefer it to not be super realistic. The older I get, the more that like hyper realistic, like horror or like hyper realistic gore will get to me.
Have you watched? I watched it recently. I've never seen it before. Frankenhooker.
Oh, Frankenhooker is one of my favorite movies.
Dude, it was so good.
Got some money, wanna party.
Oh my god, I love that so much. Then I was reading about it afterwards and how it's like, I really want to watch Doom Asylum. That's another one that she's in.
Okay, I haven't seen Doom Asylum.
It's like, those are the only two movies that she did, and then she popped off the face of the earth.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's definitely, it's like Wes Slasher-y, like this doctor gets like dismembered, and then he wants to kill a bunch of teens in this asylum, so it's definitely...
Nice.
Yeah, it's really good. Have you watched The Love Witch?
Yes. Yeah.
Dude.
I love that whole like they perfectly just captured that 60s, like mid 60s Hammer horror like color palette.
Yeah.
And it's just I think it's an adorable movie. She just keeps accidentally killing these men. I say accidentally.
Yeah.
But, that's not necessarily the end goal.
Yeah.
It just happens.
She's just too beautiful for them.
Yeah.
Just get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Can't deal with it.
No, yeah, I really enjoyed that. I love that, like the era that it's kind of nodding to, kind of the old like Vincent Price Hammer horror.
Yes, he is my favorite.
Yeah.
I've seen all of his horror movies.
Oh, yeah.
He is like
Yeah, Vincent
OG.
Price. Yeah, he's
I don't know, but if you know this, but his daughter came out with a book about him, and he was actually bisexual.
Yeah.
And they talk about that a lot, and I didn't know that, and I like learned all of this. Like I listened to his biography and stuff. He also helped with indigenous kids. He would buy their art, and he opened up. There's a gallery in California called the Price Gallery, and it's all just indigenous artwork.
Right on.
Yeah, he was like an art collector. He's a really cool dude in real life too.
That's
it's
awesome.
Not just in his movies.
Oh.
What's your favorite movie of his?
Probably Mask of the Red Death.
Yeah.
It's my favorite Edgar Allan Poe story, and him as like
Dude,
the way they've changed
all
it.
of those Edgar Allan Poe ones. I watched like all of those in one night. I was like, man, this is awesome.
Oh yeah, and they're all just so technicolor. Like, but Mask of the Red Death, when they've made Prince Prospero into a Satanist, and so he's just like perfectly villainous in it. Also, The Haunted Palace is one that I really, really love. That is, they say that it is based on Edgar Allan Poe's story, but it's clearly the case of Charles Dexter Ward by H.P. Lovecraft. But yeah, kind of any of that era.
I definitely am basic again, and I like House of Wax. That was like one of my first movies I saw by him, and then they made it into color as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I even liked the 2000s remake of House of Wax with Paris Hilton.
I couldn't watch that. I really couldn't.
It's bad, but
I tried.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I think seeing Paris Hilton get melted in wax was really the draw for me.
Yeah. Oh my god, that would be funny. I didn't ever finish it. Yeah. I don't know. I like the original so much.
Oh yeah. And it doesn't hold
great.
a candle to the original.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie Freaks?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Todd Browning, 1932 maybe.
Yeah. That's a really good one. Or Eraserhead, Carnival.
Oh, Eraserhead is one of my absolute favorite. So my birthday tradition is to get friends together, and whoever makes it until like post bar time, when we get back, I just put on Eraserhead, and when people stop paying attention to it, I start it over. So it is just that crying baby and white noise all night as the background noise. And eventually people will be like, what is that? What is that fucking sound? I'm like, I've had Eraserhead. This is probably the 4th time it's played through now.
That's so hilarious. Dude, the first time I watched it so fucking high. I did a bunch of bong rips and took a bunch of edibles. And I was like seriously sitting there like, what the fuck am I watching? But in a good way.
Yeah, no,
it's such a good movie.
Any David Lynch movie, I tell people, I'm like, just get really stoned beforehand, because like it's gonna be like watching A Stranger's Night.
Yeah, they're out there.
Yeah,
like, they're very. Yeah.
And there's not gonna be any kind of like linear plot resolution.
Yeah,
it is just like watching A Stranger's Dream.
I definitely have to say that movie kind of like, I don't really get disgusted by horror movies anymore. Like I really don't. But like when he cuts open the baby, I was kind of like, oh fuck. Yeah. I was so stoned and I was like, no, it didn't do anything to you. Why are you doing that? Same thing for like, I watched, what is it called? The baby one where she gets pregnant and all the witches want her.
Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, I've never seen that. I watched it like a year ago because my friend was like, you were so into horror movies, you've never fucking seen this. So I watched it really high, and when the devil like does all that shit to her, it genuinely made my stomach turn. I was like disgusted. I was like, this is like super uncomfy. And then the whole movie, they're all gaslighting her and shit.
Yep.
And I was like, it's a really great horror movie.
But it is genuinely upsetting.
Yeah, it is.
And I mean, like, is only half a step away from what a lot of women are going through their daily lives. Yeah. There might not be a satanic cult, but, you know.
Like, even her husband, I was like, fuck this man.
Yeah.
Like, gaslighting her into this shit because he wants to be famous. Like, no, I think my last question for you is, like, any, tattooers starting out in the industry or apprentices, what would you have to say for them, like, getting started in the industry, and any advice for anybody?
I would say stick with it. Know that when your mentors are being stern or, like, hard on you, that there is a reason for it. They're not just doing it to be a dick, usually. Obviously, I can't speak for everyone there, but 9 times out of 10, there is a reason for them having you do things the certain way that they're doing them. I think it's really important to, not mold into a that you have of what it means to be a tattooer. Making sure that you maintain being yourself and bring your own personality into it. I think is probably the most important. That's how the industry is going to change. That's how it's going to grow. That's how it's going to stay current. So be yourselves.
Yeah, the biggest thing, be
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Make a bunch of cool art.
Yep.
Be a nice person.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
not difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this interview. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
It's been a good time.
I'm excited. So thank
Oh
you.
yeah.